It was 3047 in the morning, and I was sitting on the floor of a hospital bathroom with my back against the door, trying to breathe. Not because anything had just happened. Nothing had just happened. That was the problem. My husband was down the hall with our daughter, our tiny 5-pound, 3-week early daughter who had wires taped to her chest and a feeding tube and a monitor that beeped every time she shifted. And I had excused myself because I hadn't cried yet and I needed to do it somewhere that wasn't in front of him. He was already holding so much. I didn't want him to have to hold me too. So I sat on a hospital bathroom floor at 3047 in the morning, and I cried, and then I picked up my phone and I opened the family group chat. My husband's family, 41 members. His parents, his 3 siblings, their spouses, the aunts and uncles, the cousins who were close enough to be included. A group called the Harmon family, with a little house emoji next to it, which I had always found charming before that night. I typed, "Nora came early. She's in the NICU at St. Vincent's. She's stable but small. We're scared. Please keep her in your prayers." I hit send. I watched the little check marks appear. And then I sat there on the bathroom floor and waited. My name is Meg. I'm 31 years old. I teach 3rd grade at an elementary school in Indianapolis. And before all of this happened, I genuinely believed that marrying into my husband's family was one of the luckiest things that had ever happened to me. My own family is small. My mom passed when I was 19. My dad remarried and moved to Phoenix, and we talk every few weeks. But it's the kind of relationship where there's always a little distance built into it, even when we're trying. I have one brother who lives in Seattle and works too much and loves me but doesn't know how to show it. So when I started dating my husband Marcus 3 years ago, and I met his enormous, loud, always cooking, always in each other's business family, I thought, this is what I've been missing. His mother, who I'll call his mom, made me a full Thanksgiving dinner the second time I ever visited. His dad showed me his workshop in the garage and explained every tool like I actually wanted to know. His sisters texted me memes. His brother remembered my coffee order. And then there was his Aunt Sylvia. Sylvia was his mother's older sister. She had the kind of presence that rearranged a room when she walked into it. She wore real jewelry in the daytime. She sat at the head of every table, even when it wasn't her table. She had opinions about everything and delivered them like they were facts, and people mostly let her, because she was Sylvia, and that's just how it was. She had never been outright unkind to me, but there was something in the way she looked at me sometimes, like she was assessing something and hadn't finished deciding yet, like I was still provisional. I told Marcus once that she made me feel like I was always one wrong fort placement away from being voted off the island. He laughed and said I was imagining things. I let it go. Nora came at 36 weeks and 4 days. It wasn't a dramatic emergency, no rushed ambulance, no movie-style panic. I just went in for a routine appointment, and they told me my blood pressure was elevated enough that they wanted to induce, and that was that. 22 hours later, she was here. She was so small. I keep coming back to that even now. She fit in Marcus's 2 hands. She had eyelashes you could barely see and fingernails the size of apple seeds, and she made the tiniest sounds, these little, breathy sighs. And every single one of them was the most important thing I had ever heard. She was okay. That's what the doctors kept saying. She's okay. She just needs time. Her lungs need a few more weeks. This is normal for her gestational age. She'll be home before you know it. But there's a specific kind of fear that lives in the NICU that doesn't go away just because someone tells you everything is going to be fine. You're watching your baby breathe through a machine, and you're sleeping in a chair, and you're pumping every 3 hours. And you're trying so hard to be calm because you've been told that babies can feel anxiety and you don't want her to feel yours. That was the context for the message I sent. That was the context for what happened next. The responses trickled in over the next few hours. Marcus's mom sent 3 heart emojis and then called Marcus directly, not me. His dad sent a thumbs up, an actual thumbs up, Not a message, not a word, a thumbs up, like I had texted him to say the game was starting. One of his cousins sent a gif of a candle. His sister Brianna, who lived 40 minutes away, sent "I'm so scary, praying for you guys," with a prayer hands emoji, and that was the last I heard from her for 11 days. His other sister, Amanda, didn't respond at all. Neither did his brother. Sylvia sent, "Sending love, keep us posted." Keep us posted, like I was giving a quarterly update on a project. In the days that followed, Marcus went back to work after 5 days because we needed the insurance, and he had already used his emergency leave days when I was on bed rest in the 3rd trimester. So it was mostly me and Nora and the nurses who knew our names by day 3, and a rotating schedule of people who were not Marcus's family. My friend Jade drove 90 minutes from Columbus to sit with me for a full weekend. She brought me real food, not hospital cafeteria food, actual food she had cooked, and she sat in the chair next to me and watched bad reality TV on her phone with an earbud in and just didn't leave. She didn't need to talk. She just didn't leave. My dad sent a check for $500 with a note that said, "I wish I could be there." "I'm proud of you." I cried for 20 minutes over that note. Marcus's family sent nothing, no visits, no food, no calls to me directly. Occasionally a message in the group chat when Marcus posted an update photo. Some likes, a heart, one comment that said she's a fighter, but nothing directed at me. Nothing that required them to actually show up. Nora was in the NICU for 5 weeks and 2 days. His family came 0 times. It was the end of week 3 when Marcus came home from work and sat down at the kitchen table. I was home that night, sleeping in our actual bed for the first time since the delivery, trying to function like a human being. And he had this expression I didn't recognize on him. Careful. Measured. Like he was trying to decide how to say something. He said, "Have you talked to anyone in my family, like personally?" I said no. He knew that. He had seen the group chat. He said, "I think something is going around." I asked him what he meant. He didn't answer right away. He got up and got a glass of water and came back and sat down, and then he said, "Aunt Sylvia told my mom that she heard from someone that you're not doing well. Mentally." I stared at him. "She said she'd heard you were having some kind of breakdown, that you'd been erratic in the hospital, that one of the nurses had flagged it." He looked at the table. "My mom told Brianna. I don't know who else knows." I said, "What?" Not because I didn't hear him, because I couldn't process the shape of what he was telling me. There was no Marcus. There was no breakdown. I have been at the hospital every single day for 3 weeks. I have not been erratic. What nurse? What does that even mean? "I know," he said. "I know." "Who told Sylvia?" He shook his head. "She said a source close to the situation," which I think means she made it up. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark next to Marcus, and I thought about every interaction I'd had with every person in that hospital. I thought about how carefully I had held myself together. How many times I had smiled at the nurses, thanked the doctors, kept my voice steady when what I wanted to do was scream. I thought about the one time I had cried in the hallway, just the once, just for a few minutes, alone, because I thought I was alone. And I thought, was someone watching? And then I thought, does it matter? Does it matter if someone saw me cry in a hospital hallway while my premature baby was in the NICU? Does that make me erratic? Does that make me unstable? And who the hell benefits from saying it does? I thought about all the messages that hadn't come, all the visits that hadn't happened, and I started to understand that maybe those two things were connected. If I was unstable, they didn't have to feel guilty for staying away. If I was having a breakdown, their absence made sense. You don't visit someone who's falling apart. That's too much. That's overwhelming. Better to give her space. Better to let her husband handle it. Better to wait until things calm down. It was a story that made 41 people feel okay about not showing up for their nephew's wife and their great niece during the worst 5 weeks of her life. And Sylvia had handed it to them. Here's the thing about Marcus that I want you to understand: he is not a confrontational person. He avoids conflict the way other people avoid bad weather, instinctively without even thinking about it. He grew up in a family where Sylvia set the tone and everyone else adjusted, and he had never had a reason to push back on that. But he had a journalism degree he never used. He'd gone into marketing instead, but the instincts were still there. When something smelled wrong, he went looking. He started quietly. He called his cousin Dana, the one person in the family he trusted completely, and asked her what she'd heard. Dana told him the story had come through Sylvia, that Sylvia had framed it as concern, that she'd said she had heard from a nurse she knew who worked at St. Vincent's. Dana had believed it because why would Sylvia lie? Marcus asked Dana, "Does Sylvia know anyone at St. Vincent's?" Dana said she didn't think so, but Sylvia was on the board of a local charity that did fundraising for the hospital's maternity wing. He asked Dana, "Do you have any reason to doubt Meg?" Dana said no. Then he called his mom. I don't know everything that was said in that conversation. Marcus told me it lasted almost an hour. What I know is that by the end of it, his mom was crying and she asked to speak to me. She called me that evening. She said, "Meg, I am so sorry. I believed something I should have questioned. I should have called you. I should have been there. I am so sorry." I told her I appreciated that. I meant it mostly. But here's what I kept thinking. The whole time she was apologizing, you knew I was in that hospital. You knew for 5 weeks. You didn't need a phone call from Marcus to know that showing up was the right thing to do. Marcus arranged a video call. His parents, his 3 siblings, Dana, and Sylvia. Sylvia joined 5 minutes late and immediately said she was so glad everyone was connecting and she couldn't wait to meet the baby. Marcus said, "Sylvia, I need to ask you something directly. Did you tell people that Meg was having a mental breakdown in the hospital?" Sylvia's expression didn't change much. Just a small recalibration, the way a skilled poker player adjusts. She said she had only shared what she'd been told, that she had been concerned, that she had a contact at the hospital who had mentioned. Marcus said, "Who is the contact?" She said it was someone she knew through her charity work. She didn't want to get anyone in trouble. Marcus said, "I called St. Vincent's. I called the patient advocacy office. I explained that false information about my wife's mental health had been circulated, and I asked if any staff member had reported concerns. They said no. There are no notes in Meg's file about behavioral concerns. No flags. Nothing." Sylvia said that didn't mean her source was wrong. Marcus said, "It means you have no source, and I think you know that." There was a silence on the call that I will remember for the rest of my life. And then I did something I hadn't planned to do. I picked up my phone and I turned the camera toward the bassinet next to me. We had just brought Nora home 2 days before. She was finally home. She was finally in her own room. And I let them look at her for a moment. This 5-pound-something baby with her eyes closed and her tiny fists curled up by her face. I said she was in the NICU for 37 days. Marcus and I drove to that hospital every day. I sat next to that isolette for 37 days. None of you came. I am not angry at all of you equally. Some of you believed something that was told to you, and that's human, and I understand that, but someone in this family decided that a story was more useful than the truth, and that story kept people away from us when we needed them. I just want everyone to be clear on what actually happened. I put my phone down. I didn't say anything else. Sylvia left the call 2 minutes later without speaking again. His parents came to see Nora that weekend. They stood in our living room and held her, and his mom cried, and his dad, this man who had sent me a thumbs-up emoji while my daughter was on a feeding tube, held Nora like she was made of light and said, "She's perfect, Meg. She's absolutely perfect, Meg. She's absolutely perfect." And I felt something complicated that I still don't fully have a word for. Not forgiveness exactly. Not the closed kind where you draw a line and walk away. But not the open kind either, where everything goes back to normal. Something in the middle. Something that says, I see you trying, and I will watch what you do next. His sisters called. His brother texted. Dana came over with a casserole that was genuinely one of the best things I have ever eaten, and she sat at my kitchen table and said, I'm ashamed I didn't push back sooner. I trusted her. I always have, and that's on me. I told her it wasn't fully on her. I told her what Sylvia had built was designed to be believed. Sylvia did not call. She did not text. She did not reach out to Marcus either. About a week later, she sent a gift to the house. A silver rattle, monogrammed, clearly expensive, clearly from somewhere that gift wraps in tissue paper and ribbons. There was a card that said, For little Nora, wishing your family all the best. No acknowledgement of what had happened, no apology. Just a rattle and a card, and the implication that a nice enough gift could serve as a period at the end of a sentence she'd rather not finish. Marcus wrote her back. A letter, actual paper, mailed it. I read it before he sent it. It was measured and clear and said, among other things, what you did caused real harm. Not just to Meg, but to Nora, who spent 37 days in a hospital without her extended family because you told a story that made it easier for people to stay home. I am not interested in pretending that a gift makes that okay. If and when you're ready to have an honest conversation, I'm here, but I'm not willing to act like this didn't happen. He didn't ask me if he should send it. He just told me he was going to, and I said okay, and he mailed it. That was 3 months ago. We haven't heard back from her. Nora is 4 months old now. She is no longer 5 pounds. She has more than doubled her birth weight, and she has opinions about things. Real opinions. She has a favorite sound she makes when she sees Marcus walk into the room and a specific cry that means I am tired and I want to be held and I am not interested in negotiating about this. She smiles now, real smiles, not the reflex kind. She smiled at me this morning and I thought, you have no idea what the first weeks of your life look like, and I am so glad. I still teach. I went back in January, part-time at first, and my class sent me a card when Nora came home from the NICU, 37 8-year-olds who signed their names in crayon and drew little stick figure babies. And I have it on my refrigerator, and I look at it every morning. My father-in-law has started texting me directly, not through Marcus, not in the group chat. Directly, just me. He sends pictures of things he's building in his workshop. Last week, he sent a photo of a small wooden rocking horse he's making. He said, for Nora, it'll be ready by the time she can use it. I have a lot of time to make up for. I told him he didn't need to do that. He said, I know I don't need to. I want to. I'm still figuring out what the family group chat means to me now. I'm still in it. I haven't left. But I look at it differently. I see it as a place where 41 people learned something about what they would do when it mattered. And some of them came out of that better than they expected, and some of them came out worse. I know now which ones showed up, and which ones stayed comfortable, and which one decided that a story was more useful than my daughter. I'm not performing a recovery for anyone. I'm not posting updates to prove I'm fine. I'm not accepting the silver rattle as a resolution. But I'm also not carrying the weight of what Sylvia did like it belongs to me. It doesn't. She built it. She owns it. And she can sit with it for as long as she needs to. Nora has the rocking horse to look forward to. She has a father who mails letters on actual paper when something isn't right. She has a mother who sat on a hospital bathroom floor at 3047 in the morning and cried, and then got up and kept going. That's what she gets to know. That's the family I'm giving her. And that's the only part of the story that actually matters to me anymore. I think about the thumbs up emoji a lot, not because it was the cruelest thing that happened during those 37 days. It wasn't, but because of how small it was, how little effort it took to send, and how clearly it said everything about what I meant to the person who sent it. That's the thing about moments of crisis. They don't create who people are. They just remove the decorating. What I've come to understand, sitting with all of this, is that what happened to us wasn't random. Sylvia didn't fabricate a story about my mental health because she was having a bad day. She did it because her absence needed a justification she could live with, and the easiest justification was one that made my suffering into a problem rather than an invitation. If I was unstable, no one had to feel guilty for staying home. If I was unstable, showing up wasn't love, it was a burden. She built a story that served 41 people's comfort, and she built it out of nothing, and people believed it because it was easier than questioning her. That's not bad luck. That's a choice, made deliberately, with consequences she's still sitting with now. And Marcus. I want to talk about Marcus for a second, because I think people underestimate what he did. He didn't blow anything up. He didn't make ultimatums or post anything publicly, or demand that anyone take sides. He went looking for the truth quietly, he found it, and then he said it plainly. He wrote an actual letter on actual paper and mailed it. Not because it would change Sylvia, but because he refused to participate in the pretense that it hadn't happened. That took a kind of moral clarity I don't think I fully recognized in him until I watched him do it. There's something I want to say to anyone who's been where I was, sitting in a hospital, waiting for people who aren't coming, trying to figure out what that means about your worth. It doesn't mean what it feels like it means. The absence of people who should show up is information about them, not a verdict on you. But here's what I've also learned. Surviving something like this requires more than just enduring it. It requires you to stay sharp enough to understand what's actually happening, even when you're exhausted and scared and running on cafeteria coffee and 3 hours of sleep. I almost didn't. I almost accepted the version of events where I was the problem. The fragile one, the one who needed space. It took a conversation with Marcus and a long, sleepless night before I could see the shape of what had actually been done to us. And then it required getting back up, every day. Driving to that hospital. Sitting next to that isolette. Learning Nora's different sounds. Going back to work. Rebuilding something with the people who came back while holding a clear-eyed view of the one who didn't. Nora is 4 months old, and she smiles at Marcus like he invented sunlight. She has no idea what the first weeks of her life look like. She doesn't know about the group chat, or the letter, or the silver rattle we put in a box in the closet and haven't decided what to do with yet. She just knows she's held. She knows voices she loves. She knows she's safe. I did that, we did that, and nobody's version of events changes it.